Good evening. This evening we have the pleasure of visiting with George Sniffen, a man who worked 30 years with the village of Ossining, a man who worked 35 years with the New York-New Haven Railroad, and a man who was in Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, a day that has lived in infamy and will to eternity. George, thank you for having us in your home tonight.
You're welcome, and thank you for coming.
We're glad to be here, and I would like to know, how did you get to Ossining? When did you come here?
Well, I was born in Yorktown, 1919, and we moved into Ossining 1927 to Aqueduct Street. And I was 7 by that time and went to
the Lincoln School?
Yeah, the Lincoln School.
You must have been living right near Angelo Balassone down
Same house, same house, okay. Yeah. I went to Lincoln School. Mattie Steffen was the principal. And from there we moved to North Malcolm, Van White Street, Coldwater Flat. And here and there around Ossining. Went to Old Park School.
Who did you have as a teacher down there?
No, down there I don't remember.
Don't remember? Okay.
It was the Ossining High School. My first class, room 104, I think her name was Miss Phobel. And then...
You're a graduate of Ossining High School?
Yeah, and then after school, after high school, I worked, well, even during school, I worked Ossining here, there, and everywhere. I delivered newspapers and I sold extras. I remember the Lindbergh baby being kidnapped and selling extras. And I worked Western Union delivering telegrams, 12.5 cents an hour. And after that, I became a teletype operator for Western Union. 25 cents an hour.
Double the pay.
Double the pay, right. At Harmon Station, that was. Mm-hmm. And then I drove taxi. And I was driving taxi for the Clark Brothers just before I went into the service.
Now, the Clark Brothers, one of those was an officer in Ossining, was he not?
One was a Clark, one was a cop here in Ossining, Joe Clark. And his brother Frank was a Parkway sergeant, I believe he was. And I joined the Army Air Corps. Yeah,
well, tell us how you joined. How did you get, what made you decide you wanted to go into the Army?
Well, that was in 1940, and there was a lot of talk around about draft and fellows signing up and all. In fact, I enlisted about a month before the draft started at 39 Whitehall Street. I was sworn in October the 3rd.
And you had to go to Whitehall Street on 2 occasions?
Oh yeah,
you were persistent.
First time down, we didn't even get in the building.
Who went down with you?
My friend Bill Gamby from Ossining. He and I got in line and all day and never got in the building. Next day we sneaked up in the line and got in. Were sworn in October the 3rd. And they sent us over to Fort Slocum off New Rochelle. And on my birthday, November 23rd, we sailed out of New York Harbor down to Panama, through the canal, and 10 days, all storm. Up from the Pacific side up to Frisco. Even the sailors were seasick.
That had to be a rough trip.
Yeah, and my friend got me in trouble at Panama. And
how could that happen?
Well, the colonel in charge of the boat showed up. We were late getting back, and he said a few things he shouldn't have said, and anyway, we were both put on KP all the way to Frisco.
In the storm, right?
In the storm, yeah. And a week at Frisco, and then 6 more days to Hawaii, 31 days New York to Hawaii. We arrived Christmas Eve, 1940, the year before the war, at the Aloha Tower. And they put us on a little 3/4 gauge steam engine train and ran us up into the middle of the island, Wheeler Field. That was the fighter field. And a couple of months later, another couple of fellows from Ossining arrived over up at Schofield. Eddie Miller, who was a police officer in Ossining, and Booty Travis. And we were together quite often up.
Had a nice little group out there.
Yeah, and I became partners in a 37 Oldsmobile with a friend. And so I would pick them up. We would go into Honolulu and here, there, and wherever you could. Yeah.
That was a beautiful car in those days.
I wish I had it today, yeah. And the only way we could make payments on it was that Saturday mornings my partner or I would take other fellows just arriving around the island, show them the blowhole, the pally, the upside-down falls, and so forth. And because in those days, if I was any lower in rank, I'd have been the enemy, and it was peacetime. So once the war started, we didn't make any more payments on the car. Finance company couldn't come in on the field. So then, in September of '41, I applied for and was sent down to Hickam, the bomber field next to Pearl, for aircraft mechanic school and flight engineer. And we were to graduate on Saturday, the day before Pearl Harbor. And another friend of mine, it was his birthday, December 6th, so he and I went in Saturday afternoon into Honolulu.
That was just to celebrate his birthday.
Celebrate his birthday. And we were supposed to be back at 11 that night, but we didn't get back till 5 in the morning celebrating.
What time did you have to be on duty?
6 o'clock.
Ow.
Well, they had stopped school on Wednesday. The island went on alert, and they put us out on guard duty on Wednesday. Moved us out of the big barracks at Hickam into tents.
So they had an indication that something was...
Someone did, yeah.
Something may be happening.
Yeah. There was warnings here and there, I believe, yeah. And when we got back at 5, before we come in Hickam Gate, my friend got into the trunk of the car so he wouldn't lose his pass. And I drove in, lost my pass, and on in, let him out. We had breakfast at 5 that morning. And at 6 o'clock, we went on guard duty. And I took a little pickup truck with a .30 caliber on the back end, water-cooled, that I hardly knew how to fire. I had probably only fired 1 round on the range, you know, and they said next. And when the war started at 7:55, the lieutenant come running out, and he and I took the canvas cover off the back, and I got up behind the gun that I didn't know how to...
Where were you parked? Where had you gone with that?
Oh, I parked the truck right near the flagpole at Hickam, the one that's, you know, has a lot of shrapnel holes.
A lot of pictures of that.
Yeah. And...
you said the lieutenant came out?
Yeah. And he and I pulled the canvas cover off the truck, and he made me get up behind, and I said, no, I don't know how to get up there, so I did, and look out for this one, I'm shooting, but I didn't know anything about.
So all of a sudden, from sitting in the front seat of a pickup truck,
dozing,
you have enemy aircraft you didn't even know.
I didn't know until they got close, and I saw the big red balls on the side, fuselage and the wings, that they were Japanese, you know.
What was your feeling at that time?
Utter fright, I guess.
I mean, that's normal, but it's...
So scared that I would take a swallow of water from the canteen and it would go down like cotton. Really.
So now you're on the back of this pickup shooting at the Japanese aircraft.
Yeah, as they're diving and bombing and strafing, and I didn't hit much because I didn't know anything about pursuit curve, bullet drop, windage, and so forth. But after a while, I began to follow the tracers and get a few rounds in here and there. And,
That's good.
yeah.
Some reply to
Yeah.
what they gave us anyway.
Yes, yeah. And in the middle of the attack, another fellow from Ossining, Joe Texera, was at the side of the truck looking for a friend, for a fellow from his outfit, Fort Kamehameha. He was sent over to find him, and we found out later he was killed. But it was a surprise to look down and see Joe.
Somebody from Ossining in the middle of this hell.
Middle of the attack, yeah. Mm.
Now you were right, correct me if I'm wrong, you were right near the Arizona.
Well, we were about a quarter of a mile away there, and when it exploded, the force almost knocked you over. It was terrible.
Did you have any idea what it was when it
No,
happened?
not at the moment. No, I didn't know till later what, had been hit.
What was the scene like? Now you said that there were 2 waves of attacks, and
I thought there should have been, there was 3 waves. The last wave come over high and pattern bombed in formation, but from all the reports I've read, they've said 2 attacks. Mm-hmm. And the last attack, I remember when they bombed from high altitude, was hitting closer and closer, and just before me and right after me, between the flagpole and the hospital. And
now, what was it like? Now the last wave went over. What was it like visually? What do you remember? What can you tell us?
Well,
havoc that was spread.
The bombs were hitting all around us, here, there, and everywhere. And I remember one fellow running, and shrapnel took his head right off, and he ran at least 50 foot before he fell. And the first bomb I remember hitting at Hickam hit HAD, Hawaiian Air Depot. That was the largest repair hangar at Hickam. And that bomb just disappeared into the roof like slow motion, and everything went up, and from then on it was here, there, and everywhere.
After the attack stopped, or the last wave, the barracks, you said?
The barracks right behind me, that had been hit very badly, and that burned for 3 days, plus all the hangars just behind that. And many, I don't remember how many of our planes on the hangar line were destroyed, bombers and what have you. And it was utter confusion.
Well, with not expecting it, as they've told us, or maybe expecting it but not knowing.
No, we didn't.
The force or what.
I don't think anyone really knew they were going to hit there.
Now everyone was out of those barracks?
No, there was many killed in the mess hall, having breakfast, never knew the war started. Some in the latrines never knew the war had started, were killed, we found out later. Mm-hmm. It was 3 or 4 days before we were allowed to get up top floor and to our lockers and retrieve things that we had there. And even my 37 Oldsmobile.
What happened to that 37 Oldsmobile during this entire...
The driver's side window got knocked out, and a piece of shrapnel went through the radiator.
That's it?
That's it. And I used it up till I left to come back to the States for pilot training, and I never saw it again. A year later, I stopped off there on the way back overseas, and it was gone.
That night, what was the scene like?
Well, first of all, before nightfall, I was sent over to the seawall overlooking Pearl, backed up to it with the truck and the gun. And I could see the mess out in the harbor, catastrophe, you know, everything burning and blowing up, and oil and bodies floating out with the tide. And then that evening I was sent over to the far south end of the runways, and I spent the whole night under bushes, and it was raining. We had tarp over the bush, and if you even tried to light a cigarette, everybody on the other ends of the fields would shoot at you. And
this was with the thought that the Japanese had landed up in the hills?
yes, because there was a lot of rumors that the Japs had landed in the hills and they were on their way down, so everyone was trigger happy and you know, shooting at each other.
No night to get any sleep. That was...
No.
That was...
No, and what I did forget earlier was that during the attack, two B-17s that had just arrived in, as I think there were 9 altogether, but they broke up and 2 landed at Hickam. And in those days, our planes had a big red ball inside the star. And as soon as we saw that, you know, we thought they were Japanese. And I was even shooting at them. It's a good thing I couldn't hit anything. And yeah, that night was terrible, rainy, and everybody shooting at each other. And of course, the Japs didn't come back.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. And then for days after that, there was a lot of confusion, and of course, and clean up, and eventually I was sent back up. My friend sent us, like, his birthday the day before. A week or so later, we were sent back up to Wheeler Field, in the middle of the field, to our own squadron. And by the way, that our squadron up there had the first aces of World War II.
Oh, really?
Welsh, Taylor, Brown, Sterling, and another fellow, Francis Escobreski, that later on was sent to Europe and shot down 46 Germans. Yeah.
46?
46,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a tremendous number.
Then after the war, in fact, not too many years back, he became president of Long Island Railroad. I haven't seen him since the war. But then in June, I took the 2-year college equivalency test for pilot training, and was sent back to the States. And
For training?
for flight training, yeah.
Where was that?
California, Arizona, and then into B-24 Liberator bomber, and back overseas after a lot of months.
Back to where?
To the Southwest Pacific. 31 hours after Frisco, we landed in Guadalcanal. fast planes. You know, stopping at this island, that island, so forth. And I joined the 13th Air Force, headquarters 13th Air Force. Met another fellow from Ossining that was head chef, head cook of our outfit. He later opened, after the war, opened a deli on Camp Woods Road. Oh, God, I can't think of his name.
You'll think of that. Well, that meant the food had to be pretty good.
For
Well,
me,
you
it
guys
was,
were
yeah, he took care of me, and I took care of him. Yeah.
What was your mission over there at that time? Where were you flying?
We were flying up and down the Solomon Islands from Guadalcanal up what they call the slot. There was, you know, Bougainville, Munda, Choiseul, Coleman, Gary, all the way up to the Admiralty Islands, bombing here and there, and Simpson Harbor, New Ireland, New Britain, and so forth. Then after the missions, I was offered a job flying a General Oscar W. Griswold. He was a corps commander on Bougainville, further up the slot from Guadalcanal. He had 3 divisions on the island, 14th Corps it was, and we would fly him to Brisbane, Australia a couple times a week, park alongside the Baton, MacArthur's airplane, and our plane was called General Delivery, yeah, and when the General would our general would take off with MacArthur, then we'd unload and open up the nose section of the RB-24 and pull out about 7 cases of cigarettes.
That's what fit in the nose.
Yes, that's all we could squeeze in. And take them into town and trade them.
Now that was near the end. Then you came back to the States?
No.
Oh.
Then MacArthur moved up to Hollandia, New Guinea, and we flew our general over there, and I ran into my friend Eddie Miller from Ossining there a few times. And then our general went by boat to invade the Philippines near the end of 44, and our crew and another crew we had went on down to Sydney for 15 days leave, and we ended up staying 3 months in Sydney waiting to be called back up to the Philippines. And eventually we did go up to the Philippines and met up with the general, but he never flew with us again. He was too busy pushing the Japs. And we stayed on with him till he said he didn't need us any longer. We flew down at another island, Tacloban, and got on a boat, and 22 days later we were in Frisco.
And home.
Well, then 6 days after that we arrived in Dix, and 8 days after that, June 8th, I was home in Ossining before Japan surrendered. Halfway home, Germany surrendered. So I had enough points. In fact, not that I'm counting, but I had 4 years, 8 months, 6 days, and 2 hours.
Okay.
Who's counting?
And what had you planned on going in for?
2 years.
A little more than had
Yeah.
you counted.
Well, once the war started, duration.
After the war,
After the war,
what did you do?
well, then I had a job, Diamond Die Cutter, Hudson Wire Company, for a few
Right here in
months.
Ossining?
In Ossining, yeah. Industrial diamonds. And then I also worked for a year on the mothball fleet that was at Tarrytown, and because of the tides, they moved it up across from Peekskill, Stony Point. And I lived on the ships up there for a year, working on them, deckhand and so forth. And then I got the job on the railroad.
And that was with the
New York, New Haven, and hardly ever runs Hartford.
Hartford.
Railroad, yeah.
Which that changed to what? Then the name changed to?
Well, then they became Penn Central,
Right.
and then Conrail. And then I retired when it was Conrail. Now it's, of course, Metro North. Yeah.
Now, at the same time, because as I introduced you, you worked for 30 years. You'd be quite old if you'd worked for 65 years.
Yeah, one job. Yeah, I mean,
You worked for the village of Ossining as the lamplighter.
Well, in 1949, I bought a Levitt house, Levittown. Had the 49 model for a year, sold it, cleared $500. Bought the 50 model, had that 4 years, and then sold that, cleared $2,500. Moved back to Ossining, Pearson Gardens, and got the job on the town in 1953.
Which was doing what?
I was the lamplighter. I was known as the lamplighter. I did street lights, traffic lights, yeah.
And that was every day?
Every morning, 8 in the morning, 12 noon. Then I went to the railroad after
Oh, you
that.
kept busy, didn't you?
Yeah, well, like they say, go around the world for a nickel.
What kind of a family do you have?
4 sons, 4 beautiful sons, 3 married, 7 grandchildren. And I have my beautiful wife, Terry.
That's great. It's, I have a final question, unless you have something more you'd like to say. And that's, you have given a lot to Ossining. VFW, American Legion, worked here, you brought your children up, you thought enough of Ossining. You have given a lot to Ossining. What has Ossining given you?
Well, as you said, or as I said, I have 4 sons. Ossining has given them a good education. They have beautiful schools here in Ossining. They went parochial school, Ossining High, and then on to college, and they're all doing well, very well. To me, Ossining is beautiful, and I wouldn't trade Ossining for any place. That was one of the reasons I moved back from Levittown. I missed Ossining, and I want to get back to it. And I've met many friends here, and as you said, the Legion, the VFW, the Moose Club. I wouldn't trade Ossining for any place. Hawaii once in a blue moon for a week or two, but back to Ossining. Yeah, and like we're going over for the 50th, December 4th, for the 50th anniversary reunion.
Reunion.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure, Ossining's pleasure, to hear your story of December 7th, 1941. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much.
My goodness, this room has everything.
This is my cadet class.
And that's you?
And that's me.
That's
That's me. This and this is the same here. A week or so before Pearl Harbor at Hickam, when I was going to aircraft mechanic school. And I'm down in the front there with my friend from Poughkeepsie that we celebrated the birthday on. Yeah. Often wonder what happened to all these.
Where is the picture of...
Oh, and up here.
Here it is.
There it is. At Hickam. There's a little pickup truck just behind the flagpole there. That's where I was all during the attack. And that's the big barracks to the left.
Look at the holes in the flag, my lord.
Yeah. And that barracks burned for 3 days, along with the hangars and all behind that. And December 7th, this flag will be flying again at Hickam.
And that's general delivery?
Oh, this is the general's airplane, general delivery, yeah. This was one of my bombing planes, man of war. And up here, 4 of us from Ossining when we first arrived over in Hawaii. Booty Travis on the left top, Eddie Miller, that was a police officer. Fellow I joined with, Bill Gamby, and myself. You can see the rank I had there, PFC. The only one with a stripe there.